Welcome back to Feed Me Your Construction Content. I'm Josh McMahon.
And I'm Charles Barefoot.
And we're pleased to introduce to the show Justin McMahon, who's a subcontractor in the construction business. So a little bit of background on Justin. He served in the U.S. Navy for 15 years as a rescue swimmer. When he left the service, he struggled to find a place in the world. Eventually joined the construction industry as a construction superintendent for a 55-plus home builder in the Richmond, Virginia market. And we're happy to have him on the show.
Yeah, a little bit of nepotism. But yeah.
It's not easy to grab guests right out the gate, you know. We're a growing podcast, Charles. We'll take what we can get.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be judgmental of our performance so far.
So, Justin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, I appreciate the invitation to be here. I've been listening to your show now for about six episodes. Pretty solid content.
All six.
So a little bit about me. Did 14 years active duty in the Navy as a rescue swimmer. Basically hit my higher tenure and did the transition process out. Thought I was set up for success. Had my degree, my needed certificates. The plan was to get out and get into being a teacher or instructor within a company. That it didn't pan out at all, because as it turns out, you typically have to be within a company, and then they kind of pick you to do an instructor. So you don't have any real, instructor teaching background. It's more you just have the knowledge of doing that job or working for that company. Mm-hmm. So it's you essentially start over at the basics and somehow work your way up and get that.
And you had your bachelor's degree and your master's degree, and you even had your master training specialist while you were in the service. So you did everything in the service to check those boxes to come out and move into some kind of instructor role. So it's not like you were 14, 15 years in the Navy and this is what I'm going to do. I'm already ready. You checked the boxes too.
That's it. And, I knew at 10 years, regardless if I was in for 14, 15, 20, 25, I knew what I wanted to do on the outside. So I had already started setting myself up for that success by getting my degrees, by, doing the instructor role. The different change management courses and certificates. So I was definitely set. It was just it didn't work
civilian out. World. Yeah, the civilian world has a habit of breaking it down when you get into it. I had a similar experience, right? Like I didn't. I kind of thought, naive of me, even though I had people telling me what it was really going to be like. But like you start over. That's what it was. That was a hard reality to face, and I'd argue still is, right? Like I still find that I want to excel and think that I can excel faster than what the civilian market wants me to. So,
Yeah, it is an interesting thing because, Charles, you come from the officer corps, so you had a different level of training and different level of leadership and everything else, whereas we came from the enlisted side. And even for me getting out, just starting in construction, going into the construction side in the military, and then coming out and going to the construction side, but essentially starting all over again and grinding back through the ranks. And, it's it doesn't seem fair, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. You got kind of got to do what you got to do,
Yeah, I think just being Semper Gumby, and I think, hopefully with this content from podcasts and LinkedIn, we're trying to help other veterans bridge this gap much sooner with networking and putting themselves out there more than anything.
Yeah.
So Justin, how was your start in the construction industry, and how did you fall into that role versus from going to wanting to be an instructor or a professor to now I'm going to swing a hammer for a living?
It was honestly, I had done bits and pieces work here and there for a small company that did remodels while I was still active. So I had that taste in my mouth to do construction, and it was a great I hate to say it like this, but it was a great fallback after 3 years of just kind of going left, right, left, right, left, right. There's no, true direction. I got a phone call from a guy. He had just promoted himself to production manager for this 55 plus builder up in Richmond, and he was looking for basically to build a new team. And so, I thought about it. I jogged it around in my head. I mean, I knew the guy, I knew how he operated, so it was a little iffy at first. Josh? But I mean, essentially, I met with I met with the president of the company. We did an interview. He liked what he had heard. Talked with Josh a lot more about the job, basically what was entailed and what I could do to essentially help and be successful with it. And we actually started. It was May 31st of 2018. So it's
nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty good time frame to do this.
Yeah.
I jumped in head first, thought I knew everything, realized real quick I knew nothing, and I mean that's the truth right there. You think you have this idea that placed to your head, it's going to take me this long. If I was doing it, it would take me this long. And in reality, it's no. You're working with all these different trade partners and inspectors, homeowners, salespeople. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of cockiness on my side that, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. I'm not worried about it. I can do it. And it was very humbling, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did they have you start doing when you first got on the ground?
So I started in a community, basically closing 3 condos and a single family house. They were into the drywall phase. So the second phase, they had been sitting for months on end with nothing happening. So there was a nice struggle of actually getting people to get back on board, show up, and complete the jobs. It was probably around 2 months to finally get to the closing. Basically, I kind of moved into the warranty side after that for a little while. I was helping out in another community as well as catching up on. It was somewhere around 400 or 500 outstanding items that were still under warranty that had never been touched, observed, or anything.
Nice.
So, and I'll tell you, going into the ed aspect really helped me to learn the trade, to learn the job, and to learn how to be a CM vice just another guy. So it was a great experience doing both of those roles that early.
Yeah, warranty has a tendency to teach you the things, if you pay attention, to teach you the things that you should have paid attention to as a construction manager, right? Because then you're fixing the stuff that you either didn't catch or just plain screwed up and ignored during the build phase. There's always this, hey, we got to close, get it to close, finish the build, let's go. There's a significant trade-off in pushing for that and pushing for a quality end product.
Well, I think there's a lot to be learned from that warranty side. There are so many people, like there's a reason we go through this process of starting in customer service or warranty, moving into being a assistant construction manager, assistant superintendent, then graduating into being a full superintendent or construction manager. And the key reason for me is that one, you learn from other people's mistakes. You have to fix those mistakes, but you learn lessons. You learn how to communicate with the customers, which is the most critical piece of our business. And the third thing is you learn how to schedule. You have to learn how to schedule the work that nobody wants to do, which is a hell of a lot more difficult than scheduling a new construction where the trade partners are making their money and that's where they want to be. So if you humble yourself. You learn how to schedule that work and get that work done and communicate with your customers, and you start checking those boxes. You get your tickets signed off, and you go through that process. You learn so much about the home building side that when you get into the position to build homes, it's easy. Yeah. And that's why, for me, I want to start everybody in that role. And even today, even if you're a full-blown CM, I still want you in that role in some capacity, because I don't want you to forget where you came from, and I don't want you to forget what's important, which is the customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I think it's invaluable that you started in that side, because you did learn so much from that side of the business, which helped you improve. And what would you say was your greatest lesson in that first community? You said you made some mistakes and you had some humbling experiences, but what was like the biggest kick in the teeth for you?
Oh man, just be upfront and honest. Don't try and hide stuff. I was bouncing around so much between doing some warranty stuff or, trying to meet with a homeowner, and then moving to, back to the houses to do a QA walk or something. And, the boss would call me up and be like, hey, who's there? I'm on the other side of the community. Instead of just saying, hey, man, I don't know. I'm over here. It was like, oh, yeah, I think so-and-so's there. Yeah, 'cause I'm standing here. They're not here. So just be honest. Tell, your day will sometimes get ruined. You're not going to be able to sit there and BS it.
Yeah, solid policy. Right. Is open honesty. And that's a takeaway for any industry, right? If you don't know, just say you don't know. The only harm is that you can say I don't know, but you need to have a valid answer as to why you don't know, right? Not that I just wasn't paying attention, that I don't care. It's I was paying attention to another thing that was also important. That's the caveat to that. I think that's the takeaway that people need to have from what you're saying is like, if you have a good reason to not be to have the answer of I don't know right now, then you're going to be okay. I don't think anybody in this industry is going to actually chew you apart for that. But if you don't know because you haven't been on the site for 3 days, then they might get a little upset.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I would say any boss, manager, or leader that's chewing you out because you don't know an answer is probably not somebody you want to work with long term.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Charles. I mean, if you don't know just because you haven't been to that job site in the last 2 hours, it's not really a big deal. For me, if you lie about it or you try to bullshit your way through it, that drives me absolutely up the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I couldn't agree more with you. So Justin, with that organization you worked for, how were they set up in terms of superintendents or customer service managers or assistants? Like what was the dynamics and how was that company organized as far as the field side goes?
So we had it was a smaller company. We had a production manager who basically oversaw the supers, the CMs that were out in the field. Your typical office employees that, purchasing, president, warranty stuff, those guys who ran, the paperwork, the background. And then out in the field, we had 5 at 1.5. It was, typically 4 to 5 superintendents that were actually in the field. And then depending on the community, you might have 2 guys out there or just 1 guy. And with that, so my community, my first community, was just me. Smaller thing, didn't really need 2 people. Moving into the other communities, we had 2 guys out there. 1 guy, he was pretty much running your front end, everything up to drywall. So through the framing inspection into installation. Then the next guy would come in and pick up and take the house from drywall to closing, and then start the warranty phase. As we grew a little bit and picked up another community, we did have a designated warranty guy. So we'd do the handoff to him, and it was no longer worried about everything with warranty. It was now focused on our builds. Don't get me wrong, there was still other stuff to do post closing. You're not just going to leave it and move on. And what's the saying? You can't build away from a problem. It's true. You identified it, you owned it, it's yours. You'll see it closed. I mean, that's about how it was. My last community, again, it was a bigger single family community. It was a agri community. It was, we had 2 guys. We started with the front end, back end, realized that we could actually, with that specific community, realized we could actually get more done working together throughout the entire build, whereas splitting was actually causing us a little bit more issues. So it was easier with that to work together, start to finish.
Yeah, I'm certainly a big fan of the front end, back end, and I think it really complements construction managers, especially if, even the most seasoned construction managers still don't know everything. So when you've got 2 of you working in the same community, working side by side, and really collaborating and helping one another, and say, even this week for my job site, we have a job that's QA is next Thursday. We were probably 2 weeks away from being ready for that QA, and myself and 2 assistant construction managers are in there, and I was basically just directing traffic for the 2 ACMs to teach them how to work as that team, just like you're saying. And I'm saying, okay, Greg, you're going to what's next on the schedule? And Greg and Jeremy are talking it through, like, well, we need to get the railings installed. I'm like, okay, Greg, call the trade partner, get him on the phone. I said, okay, what's the next one, Jeremy? And he says, well, we got to get the irrigation in the ground. Great, call up the irrigation contractor. So these guys are working in tandem, and then taking that information, writing it down on a piece of paper, scheduling it out. What time are they coming? And I'm like, okay, how do we feel now about getting to that QA date? And the QA date is 1 week before the home orientation, 2 weeks before the closing. So there's a lot of more time in there, but these guys working together instead of their old way of doing it and saying, we just can't do it, let's just move the closing a month. That's not going to be acceptable anymore. As a team, we can get through this, and we can get to the other side, and we can win. We can find that W. It might be painful, but we can find the W as a team. And I think, for you, Justin, coming up through the ranks in that way, and not every builder is set up that way, but I think that you learn so much more from each other because you're able to feed off of one another, and hopefully you motivate one another. You learn from each other. Hopefully, if your greatest lesson being, to be honest and like be open about mistakes or challenges. If you're doing that with your teammate can help you long before your production manager or anybody higher up in the company even knows there was an issue. I'm a big fan of that, obviously. I think it's the best way to do it. And then I would even say, if you don't have that in your current company, that's what's great about LinkedIn. That's what's great about the Feed Me Your Construction Content podcast, is that you've got individuals like us that are out here that are willing to help should you run into that problem.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to work for the same company to have that same team dynamic. And that's what Charles and I are really pushing on, is helping one another grow our businesses, individual businesses and construction business. I'm going to kick my soapbox over now.
I mean, I don't really have anything to add. I never really experienced front and back end building, right? I carried the house from the beginning to the very end. I was with the production builder I was with, right? So that wasn't really a thing. Now, I was in a community where we had a total of four superintendents or, field managers, and we had a designated warranty person. But, it was a community of 500 plus houses, and each one of us was carrying anywhere from typically 10 to about 20. And then they opened up a couple of other communities as well in the vicinity of ours. So one of the guys ended up running more of those houses in the other communities. But anyways, so we all took the houses out of the ground and to completion. But we did, as a team, every week we would, as a group, walk each other's houses. And we would just go through, pick, 4 or 5 houses, each by a different field manager, and competitively eviscerate one another on what the house looks like. So, that's just kind of what we did, man.
Yeah, I like that style because it adds that little bit of healthy competition in there. It really helps you guys step up your game. And, it also, you're now looking at stuff you may not have been looking at.
Josh
looks at paint, Charles looks at trim, I look at flooring.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. It just added, and in our reality, we viewed it as other eyes on the job site. We didn't view it as, tearing each other apart. And yeah, your pride gets hurt a little bit every once in a while because there's something that may be just utterly glaringly obvious that you've just been ignoring. but for the most part, it was very beneficial to everybody involved.
So the reason that I like the front end back end is because, like you just said, you can do 10 to 15 homes at one time. When you've got two guys, guy, girl, whatever you have, when you have two of those individuals, you can do 30 homes comfortably because you're both only doing 15 homes, but collectively you're doing 30. And so you're able to produce more homes, have more stuff under construction. And the way this works is, yes, Justin, you're on the front end, and Charles, you're on the back end. But when you do your daily walk in the morning, you walk every home together. Mm-hmm. So just like you were saying, Charles, like you're going to pick this other person's stuff apart. Well, the back end person is picking the front end person's stuff apart because they know that side is going to affect this side. So they're communicating. And then when they go to a drywall home and say, hey, you see how you missed that stud in the kitchen? This is what it did to me here, and this is what we have to do to fix it. So you're learning so much more information from this system. Now it's not a system that's used everywhere just because we think that having too much overhead. But when you bring in, this really works good with younger talent.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I like your idea of how you guys ran your job sites. Who handled, and I know you kind of touched on it, but who handled your warranty, and what was really your process for handling the warranty tickets coming in? Was it just customers grabbing you? Like, how did you guys do your warranty? Because I think warranty for construction managers in the field is always problematic, so to speak. Yeah. We love to hate it, right?
That's it.
I want to build. I want to build. I don't want to rebuild.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Same thing with our trade partners. So how did you guys handle it at your builder, and was it successful or not?
So there was actually a process in place. First, I don't think anyone actually followed that process. The process is you've got a closing walk, NHO, new homeowner orientation, and that's typically 1 week out from the closing. You identify everything that's still outstanding with the homeowner. You get that work done prior to the closing. We gave ourselves 1 week from identifying it to having it fixed. Homeowner would sign it off, and you would do that during the closing walk. Some things would carry over, just out of our reach, out of our control. Maybe it was an item that was on back order. And then we did a 45-day warranty walk. So after a month and a half after closing, we would meet with the homeowner again. They'd have their list of all things that they have identified, dent in the stove or scratch on the hardwood, something like that they didn't see because they were so excited to close. You miss things. The more you live in the house, the more things you're going to identify. And then we would have a year-end or 11-month warranty walk. And kind of the same thing. This is where we focus on, the drywall, the paint, the bigger items like that after the house is settled. So at first it was more of a grab. Someone would see you and they, hey, Justin, I need you to come look at this. And, oh, okay, real quick. And then, they get you, they pigeonhole you into the house. And now they're showing you 100 things. And, the process is you need an email warranty. They'll set up a meeting. We'll do your actual walk. We'll document everything, and then we'll get it fixed if it's justifiable. The grab and go, grab and pull was happening way too frequently. And then, as with anybody in a community, they're going to talk to each other, and they're going to tell you, hey, Justin's the guy you want to talk to because he'll get it done. Or, Thomas is the guy because, he'll actually show up. And so we essentially just had to, put a squash on all of that. And it came down to, I'm walking my houses. That's where my head's at. I'm ignoring you. I'm ignoring the trades right now. This is my time. If you need something, email. Don't call me. Email the warranty. We'll get you on schedule. And without having the designated warranty guy, that was the process. So, we finally got it down to, scheduling to meet with the homeowners, go through their items, get it scheduled. And that's when we kept the communication up to work with the homeowner as well as the trade partners these are the times I will have so-and-so there, and I mean, there were times where we literally had to drag a vendor over because they were missing their time frame. So we'd in that case, we'd have to grab them and pull them. Everything was set up. We'd do a meet and greet. We'd pass them off. They'd get the work done to satisfactory conditions. We'd, have it signed off, send that into our warranty back at the office, so that way they could input it into the system, and it was, it's now documented forever. That is and should be the process. I know they brought on a designated warranty guy after I had left, so I'm not 100% sure how they're doing it. I would hope it's still kind of the same, where they'll schedule the time, he'll meet with them, go through the stuff, take it from there and get it done.
Yeah, man. I mean, the way we did it, much larger builder, but once we close the house, the process to close the house, we do our own punch list walk as the superintendent or field manager. Then you have the construction manager come through or somebody like them and do another walk. We consolidate that punch list, send it out to the trades. Then we do the homeowner orientation. And the goal was to have that about a week prior to closing, right? And then you do a rewalk the day before close, just to show them that everything was complete. And following that, all right, you hit day close, the superintendents carried the warranty tickets for 30 days post-close. I can't say I was a fan of that, but the intent there was to really kind of show like, hey, you're standing by your work as the superintendent on the site. And then it got turned over to our designated warranty manager. But similar experience, you'd get into a house and, if you didn't control the warranty discussion and you got pulled into a house, it turned into another punch list. It didn't turn into a warranty item. And that drove me insane to the point where I did something very similar and said, you got to email me. Like, it's got to be an email and it's got to go to our warranty department. Even if it's during my 30-day holding, you've got to send it to warranty. It automatically gets forwarded to me. I open the ticket. I'll be the one handling it, but you got to send it via email, because otherwise there just wasn't any control, and it turned into a nightmare.
Well, and you can't have a daily routine. You're not going to get any production done. And then, what I like to say is, so you're pleasing this person while everything else is burning down, which means you never get out of this situation. You never get into a smooth rhythm, and it's just insanity.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few houses just post-close just devolve into months of warranty work for several reasons, right? Lost control of the actual conversation. And I would love that that probably needs to be a whole other, we do, like customer engagement and customer service needs to be a whole other discussion. But this scenario very quickly devolves into rebuilding a house practically, because you just let the conversation just get away from you.
Yeah, you have to control it 100%. And I mean, we've talked briefly before about delivering bad news. Nobody wants bad news, but just be upfront, set the expectation, and then move forward. They will be more comfortable with it if you say, this is what I'm going to do, and then you do it, than if you don't deliver the bad news and you just continue to disappoint them by saying, I'll get to it, and then you never do anything with it. That just makes it worse. So, back to basics, right? Daily walk, Heisman Trophy, everybody that's coming in your way, Heisman Trophy them and push them off to the side and stay focused on what you're doing. Get through your walk, update your schedules, communicate with your trade partners, and communicate with your customers as necessary, right?
Absolutely.
It sounds so simple. I know we make it sound simple, but it is so critical to being successful on the job site. And
yeah, absolutely. Like, it is that simple, but yet it's so hard, right? Fairly often you'll find the most simple of tasks to be some of the most difficult to achieve. And I think that's part of the takeaway here, especially, from Justin. It's like, you got to do this. This, warranty is simple. Building the house is simple. The process is simple. but actually doing it is far more difficult. You can find a million reasons why you can't be on a job site to check out a house.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think, I think this is probably a good stopping point because we kind of touched on Justin's time as a little bit in the Navy, a little bit his time as a superintendent, how he handled some of the warranty stuff. And what I'd like to do is end this episode here, and then maybe let's get together in a few more days, and then let's talk more about how that transitioned into being a trade partner and how that's gone, how some of your lessons from being a superintendent, being in the Navy, how that's benefited and helped you today now that you're being a trade partner for the last, a year now. So, Justin, thanks for coming on this brief little session. Hope both of you have a happy Memorial Day weekend. And remember what this holiday is all about. And talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, Justin, thanks a lot, man.
Hey, like I said, man, I appreciate you guys taking the time, having me on. Look forward to some more discussions with you.
Heck yeah.
Well, that's another episode of Feed Me Your Construction Content. Follow up next week for the next episode of this interview with Justin.
Thanks, everybody.